أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله.
America, white America, I am amazed, I am astounded at your glaring lack of understanding of the black experience, your lack of sympathy, your lack of empathy, your lack of sensitivity. You are blinded by your own arrogance or just plain ignorance, eclipsed only by your stubbornness and overall unwillingness to learn from the errors of your way.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله.
Ladies and gentlemen, greetings and welcome. I have the privilege and honor to introduce the speaker of the hour, Stephen Silver. A native Washingtonian, Stephen is a sterling example of the best and the brightest that DC Public School has to offer. Orator, poet, activist, aka the American Griot. Howard University graduate and now published author. Affectionately called by his beloved community as the poet. Yes, he's etching his place in history with his unique blend of fiery poetry and spellbinding speech-making. Heralded by the former director of the ACLU as an oratorical genius, he speaks extensively throughout the Washington metropolitan area. Affiliated with dozens of Christian churches and a registered member of the Nation of Islam. He was invited to speak at the White House on several occasions under the Clinton-Gore administration. As a young man, he felt the call of God on his life. He says he wanted to be a pastor because God had given him a pastor's heart. But it was God who would change the trajectory of his life, set his feet on a path, and seal his fate as a poet. One who has met the qualifying steps to be called the servant of God, a servant of his people, a strong and courageous black man, a true modern-day black nationalist poet and freedom fighter, fighting for the freedom and justice and equality of the black man and the black woman here in the hills and the hells of North America. The Bible says in the book of Ecclesiastes, there's a time for everything, a time for every event under the sun, a time to keep silent and a time to speak. Arguably, the most powerful poet you'll ever hear. Without further ado, I present to you Stephen Silver, up close and personal. So, experience for yourself the power, the passion, the poet, the one you came to hear. Let's receive him.
In the name of the Most High God, the Beneficent, the Merciful, and in the name of all the strong black freedom fighters, I come to you today as a modern day black nationalist, poet, freedom fighter, fighting for the freedom, the justice, the equality of the black man and black woman here in America. Yes, I'm here today, but not as some prophet, no sage, no rabbi, no priest, but a poet, a voice, articulating the hurt and the pain of the suffering masses of our people who were not moving forward. A poet. But not just any poet, but one who would rise to the call of service. The beckoning of a generation. Yes, I'm here today as a servant of an awesome God and a servant of an awesome people. The God who was our God before we were brought here to the hills and hells of North America, the one of whom it was prophesied in the book of Exodus to come and to deliver his people. If indeed we represent the people and the prophetic fulfillment of Scripture, who would be in bondage for over 400 years, whom afterwards God would come to deliver. Yet brought here to America on the belly of slave ships, ships filled with dung and disease. They packed us in like sardines, traded us for mere sugar cane and coffee beans, the despised and rejected. Our people, robbed of our names, robbed of our language, robbed of our history, robbed of our culture, our folkways, our mores, our religion. Look at us. We have adopted the religion of our slave masters, and the proof is that we have bowed down to worship the image of a lily white Jesus even up until today, Yet the scriptures clearly say of this Jesus that his skin would be like fine brass burnt in an oven, whose head and hair would be like lamb's wool, not some impostor, pale-faced, blue-eyed, stringy, blonde hair, pasteurized, homogenized, white Jesus of Hollywood. So listen up, all you listeners tonight. I've come to take no prisoners. I come in the spirit of that strong black Muslim minister, Malcolm X, El-Hajj Malik, El-Shabazz, not some foot shuffling, boot licking, pacifist preaching, turn a non-violent cheek, modern day Uncle Tom escapist preacher with some pie in the sky, somewhere in the sweet by and by, lullaby preachers rocking our people to sleep. So I write this poetry to wake us up. Thank you. My poem is entitled, The Ominous Reign of Crack Cocaine. A war on drugs, or have we given in to common street thugs? Stealing yet without fail, we black folks seem to fill their jails. And what about the Prohibition campaign? While society seems to go and change, undoubtedly, the United States government has broken another covenant intended to reduce the illegal drug trade, yet perhaps partners with those whom drugs are made, failed laws and policies. The widening of racial inequalities. The statistics are troubling. African American drug use seems to be doubling. 2.2 million African Americans in our nation convicted, and a major portion of our population leading to this incarceration. This incarceration of thousands of African Americans this year is a staggering statistic we all should fear. We see no interruption discouraging the production or distribution and consumption of this targeted substance, this illegal drug use, contrary to the law, the devastating consequences no one ever saw. Marijuana, cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, an illegal drug pandemic like we've never seen, accompanied with violence it always seems. But what got us in this mess? The forthcoming case of arrest. How can this be? The coca fields of Colombia so easily hit the streets of the District of Columbia. 800,000 adolescents, 12 to 18 years old, sold illegal drugs. Are we headed to be an entire country of young gangsters and thugs? These illegal drugs are dangerous and can cause devastating harm and destroy every man, woman, girl, and boy. Oh, the sobriety, destroying individuals, communities, and an entire society. Oh, this ominous reign of crack cocaine. The fact of crack is that one single use can easily lead to a life of abuse. You see, crack delivers an intensity of pleasure beyond the bounds of which normal human experience can measure. But don't be tantalized by this fact. Why do you think they call it crack? It is profoundly unwise to use crack cocaine. You see, it damages the brain and you're never the same. And after the good feeling passes, then you suddenly begin to crash. Now you've opened a dangerous door. Then comes the craving for even more, like walking in darkness, not knowing what you're headed for, spending all your money and time, thinking how to get one more climb. As an addict, you begin to lie, cheat, and steal, and you think it's no big deal. Oh, this ominous reign of crack cocaine. But who's the culprit? Who's to blame? Who's the brain behind the stain? Now crack continuing to sweep across inner city ghettos, a small cry from country meadows. Does it matter who invented crack, since we just cannot turn time back? Thank you. My next poem is entitled Inner City Gentrification. History lesson 101 has just begun. The lesson is now in session to explain the Native American and African American similar situation concerning land acquisition. Inner city gentrification isn't new. Like the Native American, is happening to me and you. Hold the gall, hold the nerve, pushing us out into the suburbs, from inner city to country meadows, still confining us to ghettos. Hold the hype. The time was ripe, back then together smoking the peace pipe. The early European being slick, up to new tricks while shaking their hand, all the while scheming to take their land. The American Seminole never did anything criminal. Unlike them, what the European wants, the European takes, and it doesn't matter whom he's got to fake. Gentrification occurred early in our nation for a substantial duration, and once again it's here. Could this be another trail of tears for the European? Up to the same his masterful game, pretending to befriend me and you, not knowing what he's really up to, smiling in your face, all the while wanting to take your place. Once again they're being slick. Once again someone's being tricked. Gentrification, kicking us off the master's plantation. They claim immunity. Wealthy white people buying houses in our community. And just because we cannot pay the rent, it's back to low-income dwellings we're sent. If we cannot pay the high housing prices, we cannot pay the high property tax. So once again, we get the axe. The community is slowly changing its face, catering to more affluent base, which happens to be of a different race. The sad part is that it's not illegal, so watch out for the sequel, changing our culture, giving us ulcers, worried about the inevitable intention, swift and sudden evictions, making us feel the heat, kicking us out into the street. The price of living is swelling. We cannot afford to pay for our own dwelling. Like the Native American, we're in the same boat, just trying to stay afloat. Like back then, the practice is criminal. Relocating the Cherokee, Creek, and Seminole. Yet history will tell the story how they fell from their former glory. The American government taking territory. The removal begun with the Chickasaw Nation of 1831. It's not conjecture but fact. They called it the Indian Removal Act of 1830. The government up to something dirty. It had begun, surprisingly proposed by President George Washington. And no matter how much we vent, they just keep on raising rent. It's not fair, it's wrong, continuously robbed with equal education and similar jobs. Gentrification, heed these words which I have to say, 'cause I heard you looking for a place to stay. Thank you. My poem is entitled, The Perils of Apathy. Pop, pop, this foolishness has got to stop. Somebody just robbed and killed Red Dragon's mom and pop. It happened in the hood. A few up to nothing good. But wherein lies the answer? Violence spreading like malignant cancer. And then we heard the news. For a minute we are amused. Somebody's been accused. Once again we are confused. For a few seconds our disgust is mutual. 5 minutes later it's back to business as usual. Because apathy is the root of our moral atrophy. But the true test is what we do next. There's something wrong in our society when we cannot see, hear, or feel the sobriety. A crime notably and seemingly misplaced. Oh, what a waste, what a bad taste. Truly without reason or rhyme, the grit of the grime, such a terrible crime. We are tempted to just turn the channel, simply place it upon the manner. Yet this stuff must cease, can't blame the police, so let us attack, not merely react. Don't doubt it, think about it. What if it were your people who were killed? Then would it be a big deal? What should we do? Logic dictates this question we must diligently pursue, 'cause all I'm asking, what's the true crime we're masking? Oh, the answer's not hard. What if it happened in your backyard? Yes, what would you do? What would you do? What would you do if it happened to you? Oh, this violence, we say we hate it, yet we merely masquerade it, stealthily manipulate it, like water rising unabated. Yet are we the ones who create it, the way we tolerate it? Oh, but this environment of hatred, when nothing seems to be sacred. The problem is bigger, go figure what did they put the gun's trigger. I dare to bet it is society created such a mindset. This need for just such a little respect that seems so small that created the gall that started it all, that created the character flaws, behavior bound by no religious laws. When our communities are soiled like seething cauldrons, our blood must boil. Apathy, it's wrong when we don't feel the pain, like a little old woman walking in the rain. Yet this indifference, I swear, we as a people gotta care. Take action or reduce your neighbor to an abstraction. Because all I'm asking for you to do is simply place yourself in another man's shoes. Thank you. My poem is entitled, Reparations, What I Want for Black America. First of all, I demand reparation for your deprivation, your criminal perpetrations. For some, an apology is nice, but in your case it won't suffice. Financial restitution is more of a solution to right wrongs, to make amends, to make up for all your collective sins. Slavery, did you think it was for a favor? Not compensated for our labor? Forget your frivolous apologies. We want nothing less than pure equality. Then our nation can be won. When we see justice is done, have you no remorse that the scales of justice have tilt? Can you not see, hear, feel, or deny your collective guilt? The fact that you despise us don't surprise us. We've uncovered the mystery. You stole our collective history. You say that this is your nation, yet we built it without compensation. In the past, even up until today, you confined us to ghettos and slums. You live real good while we live like bums. Do you know your true identity? You are the aid and abettor of our oppressor. Together you used us, abused us, accused us, confused us, and like a ticking bomb, you're trying to diffuse us. Too many in prison, yet Jesus is risen. I want to get out of your jails, no more hell. I want my people to get off of your drugs, no more thugs. Underwear hanging out, what's that about? I demand reparations for your deprivation of education, of self-determination. Like you, I want to get paid, live in the shade, no longer play. I want to be cooler, no longer tricked by the fooler. I want to be an entrepreneur, no longer psych. Want to be like Mike, want to be like King and have a dream. I want to break the cycle of poverty. I want true sovereignty for me, myself, my son and my daughter, my brothers and sisters across the water, the souls of my ancestors past. I want to say, finally, finally, we're free at last. Thank you. My poem is entitled, Stop the Silence. Our mission first and foremost is to serve local neighborhoods in the D.C. metropolitan area. Those who in the face of violence have lost their nerve. Neighborhoods, victims of violence, those who in the aftermath of violence continue to shriek back in a perpetual state of fear and silence. Our mission is to comfort those who shed tears, for we are a small cadre of local businesses, neighbors, and volunteers. Yet what we fail to see is that we don't merely have a violence problem, but more accurately a silence problem. And the only thing more criminal than violence is this incredulous silence. In our communities, drug dealers are shooting tit for tat. We will not, cannot stand for that. Too many people in their homes held captive. We've got to be creative and more proactive. In this day, we've got to do more than pray. We've got to be too righteous to kill, too proud to steal. Their drugs, we've got to be too smart to deal. Oh, but the silence of the church. People let down and hurt. People have grown increasingly cynical. Why? Because Jesus Christ is no longer pinnacle. Yet we stand for the brotherhood of man. In the spirit of Christ, we stand to lend a hand. We seek to empower the public through the power of poetry on important positions pertinent to the plight of the African American people, which is essential to the unity of the African American community. Speaking out on issues such as conscience, HIV/AIDS, DC statehood, healthcare, war. Powerful poetry you can't ignore. Poetry you never heard before, because the voice of our time is rhythm and rhyme, and we're in this together like birds of a feather, so let's stick together. From me, yours truly, Stephen Silver, a.k.a. the American Grill. Now you know it, I aim to be the people's poet. To serve is my desire. I aspire to lift my people high. Perhaps to be the spark that lit the fire. When time swiftly pass, when the last die is cast, when the first shall be last and the last shall be first, to be the good Samaritan who comforts the hurt. Oh, but this mess, one of our generation's biggest tests. Where's the Christian? Where's the Muslim? Let's convert the street hoodlum. Let's stop the silence, stop the violence, stop the sadness, bring an end to all this unwarranted madness. If we must rally on the streets of Washington, D.C., block by block, we won't stop till the very foundation of this city rocks. Thank you.